into the talk, I'd just like
Right.
to bring up the subject of China, because they seem to be very active in that in their space programs at the moment. Can you foresee them blowing this out of the water, or problems in the future? I mean, that's quite an interesting one, because if they go to these locations and kind of say, "Hang on, weren't Apollo
Where
meant to
is
be here?" Yeah, you know, because there was a
Yes.
photograph, wasn't there, that apparently NASA released and said, and it looks like a little spot on the. From I don't know if they've managed to get better photos since then, but it didn't look completely compelling, convincing rather, not compelling, convincing. But yeah, you know, what do you think of that?
Well, those rather poor quality photographs that NASA producer said, "Here are all the landers."
Yeah,
But you can only see them because we put a bloody great arrow on it showing where it is. Yes, those were. I fell about laughing when I saw that.
And can you foresee China perhaps playing a part in this?
Certainly, I can see China doing it. I can see Russia doing it. I can see India doing it. I can see Japan doing it. One of the points, or one of the things that I often get asked when I do presentations of this material, I talk about the photographs mainly, and I always get asked the same questions. And usually the first one is, well, surely if what you're saying, Marcus, is true, the Russians would have blown the whistle.
Mm.
Which is it's a logical question. It's quite legitimate to ask it, because it's so obvious, really, when you think about it. Of course Russia would have blown the whistle. Until you actually think about how they would have blown it, who would have told them, because the Russian method of control, political control, economic control, is very, very different from those of America and Britain and the West. Who in Russia would have blown the whistle? There's only one person who could do it, and that's the president. At that time, it was Brezhnev. Who would have had access to Brezhnev with sufficient knowledge of the American space program to be able to convince him, Brezhnev, that what the whole world had watched was a fake? And now, the only person who could have done that is a guy called Sergei Korolev, who was the head of the Russian space program. Brilliant engineer, probably better even than von Braun. He had died very suddenly as a result of an operation, quite a legitimate operation. I think he had a heart attack, and he died in 1966, before the Americans had landed on the moon. There was nobody in Russia with sufficient knowledge, sufficient political connection to be able to persuade the Politburo at the time that what they were watching was probably a fabrication. Now, there's another very important factor here. We're hearing a lot about this supply of Russian natural gas into Europe, which comes mainly through the Ukraine. It also comes through what's called the North Pipeline, and it comes into through Poland into Germany. Those pipelines were first created in the mid-1960s, and they were created after Russia had discovered their immense reserves of natural gas. Russia don't have that many industries, but they do have natural resources, and they were just discovering the extent of their natural resources in the mid-1960s. And the market they wanted to open to sell this stuff to was Europe. They had a problem. Russia had a major problem, because when you're going to produce a pipeline to drive natural gas thousands of kilometers from Siberia into Europe, you've got to build a big pipeline. And the pipes are about 1.4 meters in diameter. Quite big, because you've got a lot of gas going through them. And the Russians didn't have the ability to make pipes of that diameter in that quantity to the quality required. So there was a deal struck. It's called Gas for Pipes. Check it out. It's all quite legitimate. The pipes were made by Germany. Germany was one of the major markets for Russian gas. This is in the mid-1960s, 20 years after the end of World War II. Two major German companies, Thyssen and Mannesheim, made the pipes in exchange for gas. Was anybody going to upset America to the extent that these pipes were not supplied to Russia and the gas was not supplied to Western Europe? not just Germany, it was Italy, Austria, ultimately virtually every country. France takes a major portion of it. Both Germanys at the time were taking it. This was East and West Germany, through to the Netherlands. There was huge supply of gas. This would take precedence over any idea of America faking it. And to be honest, the Russians weren't particularly interested. They had other problems to worry about. There was also a drought.